Rim 1500. I'm with the man, Captain Kangaroo, Bob Keeshan. When I hear the music alone brings back a lot of memories. And I was telling you just before we went on the air, I'm the kid, Captain. I'm your prime. I had to be your prime demo.
Well, you still are the kid, Joe. Look at you.
Yeah, but I mean, when you went on the air in 1955, I would have been 6, and I suppose I hung with you for another 5,
all right.
6
So
years.
so you look like you're 22, 24 now,
yeah.
right?
You still look like the captain, too. What were you the captain of?
Nothing. Captain of the...
Nothing.
Well, we were the captain of the Treasure House when we were thinking of the name for the program, which is kind of the last thing you do when putting it together. The costume was already there. He had big pockets. And
where'd that come from?
Well,
Wardrobe?
we thought we would pull things out of the pockets.
Yeah.
And so the pockets were just a device in the beginning, and similar to the pouch in a kangaroo.
Yeah.
And a guide showed us around the treasure house, and so we gave him a rank of captain, and we were looking for alliteration. Captain Kangaroo is alliterative, and of course this was the days of Howdy Doody, Rudy Kazooty, and the like. So alliteration did seem desirable.
You were Clarabelle Clown.
Yep. I started my career at 48, before there was a television. Really, there were 80,000 television sets in the entire nation in 48. Bob Smith was about to start Howdy Doody at the request of RCA, the parent company of NBC. They manufactured television sets, so somebody thought, hey, what a great idea. If we want to sell television sets, we should have television programming. So they asked Bob to put together a children's program based on a radio show that he had been doing for children on Saturday morning. He asked the pros, the radio actors, to help him, and they laughed because, there was no money in television. It wasn't really an industry at all. And so I was just back from the Marines. I was working my way through college at my old job as a page at NBC.
This is in Manhattan?
Yeah, in Manhattan. And as desperation, and really almost in desperation, he asked me to help him with the program. So I helped him, created the character Clarabelle, played that for 5 years. At the end of the 5-year period, there were 30 million television sets in the country.
From 80,000 to 30 million.
In just 5 years. The industry exploded. So, of course, everybody now wanted to get in it, and I was a pioneer. So I left Howdy Doody. I did 2 local programs in New York, one on the ABC station there. One of them was very similar to Captain, an elderly Geppetto-like character, grandfather character. I was always fascinated with the potential good relationship between a grandparent and a child. And so that program did very, very well. It had the same gentle quality and, I hope, creativeness. But what really attracted CBS was the audience. That probably comes as no surprise to you. But the program in New York only, because it was local, doubled the combined rating of Jack Paar on CBS and the new Today Show on NBC with Dave Carraway. So Jack was unhappy getting up in the morning at CBS, so they agreed to move him to the afternoon and asked me to put together a program for them, and that became The Captain in October of 55.
You've been touring the country with a new book called Good Morning Captain, and it's photographs from the show, and you've been in town all weekend, and we were lucky enough to get you. You're not leaving town until tomorrow, apparently.
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. And home is now in Vermont.
Correct, in Vermont.
Upstate Vermont?
Well, about midway up in Norwich, halfway between Massachusetts and the Canadian border. And so it's pretty much what Minnesota is weather-wise.
Yeah.
So.
What, and you want to get back on the air, obviously. I mean, not obviously, but I mean, I would think if television was smart, they'd get you back on the air.
Well, I think there's a need for good programming for young people. And we haven't had very much of that because when we deregulated broadcasting in the 80s, we told broadcasters they didn't have an obligation to do anything for kids, so they went right to the bottom line and started selling them toys and games and everything they could sell them. We're the only country that does that, you know. You don't find that in England or Italy or Germany, France, Japan. Those countries know that kids are the future, future of the nation, and so they put nurturing program on the air. Here we consider them a marketplace to sell. So Congress got pretty upset with it 5 or 6 years ago and passed the Children's Television Act of 1990 and asked all licensees to provide quality programming for children. So they started getting creative. They did almost anything they could to get out of it, and they started filling in their FCC logs, Federal Communication Commission logs, and they said, "Oh, we teach kids about space travel. We have a great program called the Jetsons, and we teach kids how to cooperate."
With this fella in here, Captain, who you never could have converted, I'm sure he was a big fan of that show.
Right. And of course, then we also teach kids how to cooperate in a family setting. It's called Family Feud. So the administration.
Well, you got love boat. I mean, we could go on and on.
Sure, if you can be very creative when you're writing a log for the Federal Communications Commission. But the president, a few months ago, with the backing of Bob Dole and Newt Gingrich, most of the members of Congress, in other words, both sides of the aisle, sat the programming executives down and said, "Hey guys, this is not what Congress meant when they asked you to do quality programming for kids. Now, we got to really do it." And so they agreed that each of them would provide, each licensee would provide 3 hours a week of quality programming. So if you have 4 or 5 stations in a city, you really have 4 or 5 stations doing a half hour a day, and that's pretty good. That's a pretty good agreement. And they don't have any place to run now. They used to, if the Democrats used to take this position, they'd run to the Republicans, and if the Republicans took the position, they'd run to the Democrats. But now both parties have agreed that it's a good idea. So I think we're going to see some changes, and that's why I'm putting together a program. I'm putting together 2, actually. One for syndication, individual stations from city to city. And if I can get the stations lined up in time, and actually that's why I'm here today, Joe, because what I want to do is ask you to commit the 22 stations that you personally own. And if you would commit those stations, we'd have about a third of the lineup that we need. So
can I have my people talk to your people?
Well, I have the contracts. I have the contracts in my pocket. I think we could just.
And your name still carries some weight, so my people will know who I'm referring to when I say, "Look, the captain was here."
That's right. So we can do it 1-to-1, and we get the whole thing. But if I get the stations lined up, and because that's a long haul, because there's not a lot of good sense in the business. They really, as you probably know, they're very bottom line. They want to get as much money as they can out of the license. But that's why it's going to work, because they know that somewhere along the line, if somebody doesn't do it, the license may be taken away, and that's a money machine, that license. You don't want to risk losing that.
Bob Keeshan is with us until 3 o'clock, and he told me that he would
entertain phone calls at some point. In 1950, you have 3 children. You were telling me off the air your wife died in February. You were married 45 years. Your 3 kids are now in their 40s. You're a grandfather. When they were my age, I mean, their old man was the captain, and what was that?
Never made anything of it, Joe. Never really.
Where'd you live during that?
I lived in Long Island in a suburban community. It was the community respected the wishes that Gene and I expressed. We were very afraid that because we'd all heard horror stories, and we still hear them from Los Angeles and places like that, where the children of celebrities grow up in the most warped kind of way if you're not careful. So we never used our kids as a laboratory, never questioned them about the program. If they wanted to watch, they could. If they didn't, they didn't. And actually, in the book, in Good Morning Captain, I tell a good story about my youngest, Maeve, Maeve is now 41, about to be 41 next month. And Maeve, when she was, I guess, about 3 and a half, came in with her brother and her sister to the studio and their mother. We were going to the circus, and I had just finished the show. She came running over to the captain and sat in the captain's lap and talked to him for maybe 5-10 minutes, as any 3.5-year-old might. Then I excused myself, and I went to the dressing room, took off my makeup and costume, and 15 minutes later came back as myself. And Maeve came running across the studio and said, "Daddy, you should have been here. You just missed the captain." So we knew that.
Was that your hair?
That was a wig.
Oh, because you were doing kind of a Paul McCartney thing there way before.
No, he was doing me.
Yeah, he
was
doing a captain thing.
Yes.
When you began the show, did you conscientiously intend to be as soothing and as gentle as you obviously appear to be, or off the air were you just a hard drinking longshoreman type who had to completely fake the whole captain event?
No, you can't fake that character. There's no way.
What did your dad do for a living?
My dad was a grocery executive. He was an immigrant from Ireland in 1905. When you came from Ireland, you couldn't get a job in this country in most industries. I can remember doing research for Bob Smith on radio and doing the one-ad files at one point. He used to do that wonderful year, 1917, 1926, whatever. And one year we did 1905, which was the year that my dad came to this country. And I went to the one-ad columns, the classified columns, and read every one of these. An accountant wanted, this one wanted, that one wanted. And the tagline in the New York Times on every one of these one-ads was, Irish and Catholic need not apply. And so I said to my dad that night I came home, I said, Dad, I read all, you never talked about that. And he said, oh, it was all right. He said, we made our own way. And that's what they did. They had kind of a ladder. Like his brother had come over before him, and he brought my father over. My father, in turn, brought three more brothers over. And they got jobs where they could get jobs, and the grocery business was one of them. They also, as you probably learned, could be policemen and firemen, civil service workers,
or mayors,
or eventually rise to that rank. But most of the professional jobs were closed to them in those days.
Did your dad ever get to see you be the captain?
Yes, he did. He did. He passed away about 2.5 years after I started. He was enormously proud. He was a good man.
But the gentleness then, did you come by it naturally?
Oh, I think so. My mother was always a good influence on me. She passed away much earlier when I was an adolescent. That was a big shock for me, but I overcame that, and I think I always was fairly gentle. I was kind of a strange bird in the Marine Corps, I guess. Although I always say the Marines were absolutely great training for me, wonderful training. Teach me to, when you have a job to do, you do it right, attention to detail and all that sort of thing, which I call upon to this day. And it has been remarked on occasion that Lumpy Branham, who played Mr. Green Jeans, was also a Marine.
Is he still alive?
No, we lost him 10 years ago. So here we have two characters in a very gentle program, Captain Kangaroo, who came out of the Marine Corps. Well, we both felt the same way. We had darn good training there, and we learned how to do things right and paid attention to details. We were very professional, I think, as a result of it.
Did you create the show?
Yes, I created the show.
Did you create Mr. Green Jeans?
Well, a lot of people. It was a collegial effort. You can't say I created Mr. Green Jeans. A lot of writers and said, what do we get? Well, he's going to be Mr. Outside, I would say to my Mr. Inside. Going to show animals. He's going to... Now,
Green Jeans, every day, he'd tell you something about a rabbit or a squirrel.
Right, exactly. That was one of his functions. So, of course, it was natural that he'd be a farmer. And Green Jeans, again, the alliteration thing, made a lot of sense. But when it came to the character itself, it was Lumpy who created it. Lumpy Branham played himself.
Did he have a long history in the radio business?
No, not at all. Not at all. He was a musician, a good jazz musician. Played with Fred Waring. Fred Waring, he was a bass player in Fred's orchestra, did special material for Fred for children, Uncle Lumpy and Little Orly Stories. And that's how I first met him. And he was just a nice, very gentle guy and very creative, had good musician. And, he did things, he loved the environment. He was very, very environmental conscious before we ever talked about that anywhere in this country. Back in the 50s, he was talking about the earth and our need to take care of it and the animals and sharing the earth with animals. And that was back in 56, 57, 58, before anybody was talking about the environment here. So he played himself, really, and he was just absolutely wonderful.
We're going to take a break. I want to ask you to think of a question while we have this brief absence. I want to know what you think the difference is between the home you entered in 1955, the kid you talked to in 1955, and let's say Captain Kangaroo went back on the air tomorrow, the home you would be entering and the child you'd be talking to in the event you went on tomorrow. It's 21 degrees. Our guest is Bob Keeshan. I'm absolutely luckier than you because I'm here with him, Captain Kangaroo. 646-8255, 1-800-962-0792, pound 1500. We'll be back, KSTP AM 1500. We are back with Captain Kangaroo, Bob Keeshan. And I had asked you, sir, before we left, I was the kid you talked to in 1955, and what is the idea of the home and the child you talked to in 1955 as opposed if you did it today?
Well, I don't think the child has changed that much. I don't think the child changed much in 30 years or in 300 years. I think probably in ancient Greece, the child was pretty much asking the same questions, security-related questions. Who am I? Am I loved? What does the future hold?
Mm-hmm.
The way we answer those questions has changed radically in the last 30 years. The home, the family being one of those. We had very few kids living in single-parent homes back in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Today, almost half the kids of this country live in single-parent homes. That comes about through divorce and a much more casual attitude toward divorce. It's so easy to divorce and so easy to not for the legal people, the judges and everybody else, not really to consider the kids in divorce. And also, there's a tremendous number of kids born out of wedlock. A lot of kids born to teenage parents, almost 1 million a year in the country. So a lot of kids grow up in that kind of situation. And then we have many more parents working outside the home than we did in those days. And I don't buy the idea that they're out there because they want to buy the fancy automobile or raise their standard of living. I think most people are out. I think a lot of women are out there because they like their work and they're real professionals and they're good. And that's their right. I'm the last person in the world to tell them that they should have forced upon them a role that may be more traditional. But there are an enormous number of women, probably the majority of women who are working, who would rather be in a much more traditional role in the home, but have to be out there working. That second paycheck, or in the case of single-parent families, that single paycheck is critical. So the way we nurture kids today is radically different, and that leads to a lot of differences. It leads to less time given to kids to nurture them. It leads to things like, honey, I'm so tired, I've had a bad day at work, do me a favor, go watch television. And they go watch mostly adult television, not children's television. And they watch with a lot of values that if we took a peek over their shoulder, we'd say, what are you watching that program for? Mm-hmm. But a lot of parents don't know what their kids are watching, and they don't know where they're going, and they don't know what they're doing. We have a lot of kids who come home to an empty household.
See, I bought the rabbit and the moose and grandfather clock and Mr. Green Jeans. I ate it up. I don't know if today's kid is so.
Oh, they do. Those personal values are there, and they will buy them. Captain only left television 3 years ago in 1993, and it was consistently one of the 3 highest-rated programs on public broadcasting, on public television. So obviously there were a lot of kids buying it then. They buy Mr. Rogers. Mm-hmm. Look at Barney. They buy Barney. Mm-hmm. Barney is very benign. I would do more with the program, add more characters and all that. But that's a producer's point of view. Basically, he's a decent program. The science guy, he's a good program. So they're buying programs of this sort that, if they're done creatively, they will reach the human being.
You're going to remember this. I went and did some library clips, and this one amazed me. Apparently, it was in the spring of 1988. You were asked to give the commencement? It was at Western Connecticut University?
There was yes.
You were asked to be.
That was one of many. Yeah, right.
And you've done many,
yeah,
I would assume. Right. But on this particular case, it was Western Connecticut State at Danbury, and apparently some of the students there said that I'm sure Captain. Well, here's one quote that was in the school newspaper. I'm sure Captain Kangaroo is a delightful fellow, but it is of the opinion of many students that he offers no insight or inspirational impetus for our seniors to attain career pursuits. And here's why I brought it up. Didn't Kermit just give a commencement?
Oh yeah, he did.
I mean, what was wrong with these morons that they didn't think you could offer them any inspiration for people?
Well, what was wrong?
You ended up going there, didn't you?
Yes. What was wrong really was that the newspaper uncovered 3 people out of a student body of like 4,000 or a class of 4,000 or so that were graduating. So there were 3 who held that opinion when it was first announced.
It sure made the news.
It did, because of course it makes the news. That's the kind of thing that makes the news, right? And it has no relation to reality. 3 students out of the whole bunch, and they eventually turned around and said, "Gee, we thought about it, and we're sorry." And then, of course, I did go and give the commencement address. And after the commencement address, the president of the student body and everybody else, quite a group of students came up and said, "That's the best commencement address they tell us that we've ever heard." So
now, you are retired normally. You don't show up in your captain.
Oh, no, it's just as
But
as
you
an
do
adult.
come by these eyebrows pretty naturally,
Yes,
don't you?
those are natural, yes. Raise them and lower them as is appropriate.
Oh, sorry, Captain. We give the foghorn to the word appropriate and inappropriate because I'm convinced in today's society they've replaced right and wrong.
Well, yeah, you can take that position.
No,
but,
I mean, there's good ways you can use it, but I'm boxed into a corner now.
Oh,
I got to hit the horn.
You got to hit the horn.
You
got to do it.
You know how to. I mean, you did
no,
that.
Hitting the horn is appropriate for you.
see, I mean, we're stuck now with this.
Yeah,
deal.
no, really, it is. No, I think that's just absolutely right. I would say something else, but I'll say right.
No, we got it to queue up fast. Sue?
Oh, Captain Kangaroo, this is indeed an honor for me, too. You know what I remember? We never seemed to have enough shoe boxes in the house or toilet paper tubes, but I wanted to know, what's the story with the ping pong balls always falling on Mr. Moose?
No, they fell on me. Mr. Moose did it. I did. They didn't fall on Mr. Moose. They fell on me, and it was something that delighted Mr. Moose and incidentally delighted millions of children as well. So I was probably the only person on earth that did not know the ping pong balls were coming. And everybody else anticipated it with glee and really enjoyed it when it happened. So there you go.
Okay.
Thanks, Sue.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick news break, but Captain Kangaroo, Bob Keeshan, will be with us until 3 o'clock. Here's Terry Anderson with the KSTP News. Captain Kangaroo, Bob Keeshan. Somewhere the set is struck for the treasure house, and it awaits your return. You were telling me you're not overwhelmed by hobbies. You've enjoyed working, and
yeah, I think that's important. I
golf drove you nuts.
Yeah, golf did drive me crazy because you can't develop a golf game. You play once a week or once every 10
radio's
days.
ruined my golf game.
Yes, I know. It's a terrible thing, Joe. You were a scratch golfer,
I
weren't
was
you?
getting there. I was absolutely getting
you
there.
You were within 30 strokes of
Well,
being
I was
a scratch golfer.
I was thinking the Q school, and then radio hit, and it all fell apart. Dale?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I would. It's an honor to speak to you, Mr. Kangaroo.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question. I want you to dispel kind of a rumor that's been going around. I think it's like an urban tale.
It is.
It is a tale. You know which one I'm talking about.
Well, I don't know which one, but there are so many of them going around, and they're all just strictly rumors.
The one about Mr. Green Jeans being Alice Cooper's father.
Al Cooper? I haven't heard. Well, no, it was. Oh, you can name almost any rock star from the 60s or 70s, and Mr.
You know,
Green,
I have heard that now
sure.
that I think
Mr.
about
Green
it.
Jeans was the
Frank Zappa.
Frank Zappa was Mr. Green Jeans. I mean, none of them. Where people get this, I don't know. Some DJ was sitting somewhere once, I guess, and playing. What's the name of the song? Wallflowers, I guess. And in the lyric, it's something about and watching Captain Kangaroo.
Oh yeah.
And some DJ probably said, and that is a tribute that Frank did to his father, Mr. Green Jeans. And boom, it takes off.
I think, Dale, that's the one I heard, that Mr. Green Jeans was Frank Zappa's father.
Well, I've heard any number of. I've heard of Alice Cooper. I've heard of Frank Zappa, and I heard this like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Actually, the real truth, of course, is he is Rush Limbaugh's father.
Thank you.
Another foghornable word.
Yeah. All right.
Survivor.
Survivor?
Yeah.
We'll take it up at another time.
All right.
Kathy?
Hi, Joe. How
Hi.
are you this afternoon?
Fine.
Hello, Captain. I have 2 quick questions for you.
Okay, Kath.
Who was the dancing bear?
Well, here goes the plug again. In the book, Good Morning, Captain, which Joe has been talking about today,
Okay.
we talk about everybody on the program. And we talk about Frank Zappa. We talk about those rumors that Dale was just talking about, try to pin them down. And we talk about a good deal about Lumpy Branham and Mr. Green Jeans and the nice lady who supplied all the animals on the program, the guest stars, the hundreds of them that had been on the show over the years. And we talk about Gus Allegretti. Gus Allegretti was a puppeteer, is a puppeteer, and Gus did Bunny Rabbit, Mr. Moose, Grandfather Clock, Magic Drawing Board, Dennis the Apprentice, and the one and only Dancing Bear.
Dancing Bear.
And many other characters.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
My next question was, you touched on it a little bit, whose idea was Bunny Rabbit?
Well,
I loved Bunny Rabbit.
Yeah, Bunny Rabbit, I don't know, I guess we can assign that to Gus more than anybody else, really. I don't really remember who exactly came up with it. Okay. But Bunny Rabbit could have been any one of a number of characters. It was just that we chose the bunny, and it was Gus who gave him his character. There's no question about that. A completely pantomime character, and Gus did a brilliant job in making him speak to us without saying a word.
Without saying a word. I love the Bunny Rabbit.
Right.
Well, I just wanted to know who did the Dancing Bear, and my condolences on your loss in February.
Well, thank you, dear. I appreciate that very much, Kathy.
Love you a lot.
Thank you, dear.
Bye.
I have a feeling that you will remember the name of every caller.
I think that's if
Is that
somebody,
a safe bet?
Well, if somebody calls and has something to say, I think it's important to be as personal as possible.
Dave?
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
Mr. Keeshan, it's indeed an honor.
Thanks, Dave.
I grew up, my two big idols in life as a child were the two captains, Kangaroo and Kirk.
Oh, all right. Out in space.
I'm having my first child in January, and unfortunately he won't be able to grow up watching Captain Kangaroo like I did.
Well, Dave, I'll be there, and if not with the captain, with something else. If the industry will cooperate and make some sense of themselves and do some quality programming, I'll be part of it for your child and every other child of this generation.
That would be just fabulous, because the way things are heading today, there's no respect anymore, and even as an adult, the things on TV are quite shocking in many respects. And I really, really hope that you still can make a difference out there.
Well, I'll try to, Dave. There's a lot of attitude in this world today. That's one of the problems. We don't teach gentleness, but we also don't teach, hey, this is a good way to live, is to be kind to each other and to be good to each other. And it makes a lot of sense for us as we grow up. And unfortunately, with television,